This week, President Clinton tours 4 Central American countries, including those that were ravaged last fall by Hurricane Mitch, the most destructive natural disaster ever in this hemisphere. Hardest hit was Honduras, which was already one of the poorest nations in the Americas. A few Hondurans are wealthy, but most are impoverished peasants. The U.S. will offer a huge aid package, but church organizations are attempting something radical: to build from the ruins of Honduras a just society. Ruben Martinez reports.
Honduras is a nation in ruin. Here in the capital, Tegucigalpa, entire neighborhoods were washed away. Many well-constructed buildings were damaged beyond repair. These men are risking disease by diving into a river polluted with raw sewage. They're trying to recover their pickup truck, which has been underwater since October. They say it's their only source of livelihood. In the countryside, the situation is even worse. Roads normally used to take crops to market are gone. The entire banana crop, worth $210 million in exports, was wiped out. These new banana trees won't bear fruit for another 6 months. A huge loss of food and jobs for the local people who work the fields. The damage to infrastructure was devastating. Some 90 bridges were knocked out when the country's 24 major rivers were flooded by torrential rain. The U.S. aid is already visible. These U.S. Marines from Camp Lejeune, North Carolina, have been here since November building bridges like this one across the Rio Bonito. The 230-foot span will be completed by the time President Clinton arrives. But many Hondurans, while grateful for the bridge, feel the country needs more than just physical reconstruction.
4 months after the worst natural disaster in their recorded history, Hondurans are trying to build a bridge to the future. But it'll be no easy task. Indeed, many Hondurans say they don't really want to rebuild the country that was, but to create a whole new society from the ruins.
At the forefront of the reconstruction effort is the Catholic Church. American Doug Ryan, who has lived in Honduras for 5 years, is the head of Catholic Relief Services. He's attending a grassroots neighborhood meeting the church organized to discuss the distribution of aid and reconstruction. The church, through its international relief organizations, has pledged some $500 million to the region over the next 5 years. However, it is no typical aid program. Along with food, clothing, and rebuilding supplies, the church is embarking upon an ambitious effort to organize people to address the social ills that had plagued Honduras long before the arrival of Mitch.
This is not an emergency where people are simply looking at budgets and how much money is there and how many new houses. This is an emergency where Catholic Relief Services with the local church has looked very, very carefully at the social sphere of the problem and has been very, very careful in saying the new society that we want looks like this.
The task of changing the situation will fall on local churches like this one in Toccoa, which was an aid center during the storm. The staff here consists mostly of young and idealistic people like Oscar Ramos.
We didn't want to promote paternalism in the community, so we built a solid, structured community organization that guarantees that the aid won't go just to one sector or another, like when the government gives it to political friends, or if we Catholics only gave to Catholics, or evangelicals only gave to evangelicals. We formed local development committees that are made up of all sectors of the community, all the churches, Protestant, Catholic, the local government, families, and teachers.
There are already some signs of progress. The Catholic Relief Services Food for Work program has done more than just feed the hungry. In exchange for the food, the recipients agreed to help clean up and rebuild, providing them with the opportunity to plant crops and grow food for themselves. Residents have regained a sense, if not of normal life, at least dignity in the face of tragedy. A good example is in the town of Taujica. Amalia Mia started up a women's farming co-op, which has already yielded its first harvest of beans, cucumbers, carrots, and chilies. Soon, the corn will mature. With luck, they'll have enough to feed the 54 families in her neighborhood and even sell a portion for profit.
In church, we've received the message that women can work just as well as men can. A woman has arms and legs like a man does. We've discovered that all the work that a man can do, a woman can do too. After Mitch, men, women, and even children began working together.
There are also some examples of progress on the ecumenical front. Blancoelia Torres, a seamstress, says the only thing she saved from the floodwaters was her sewing machine. She's an evangelical Christian who enthusiastically attends meetings that are organized to a large extent by Catholic lay activists.
We are like one body. The problems of one are the problems of all. We are united. This group has taught us how to treat people right, and that is how we're going to do it. We're going to work together.
There are elements of this grassroots organizing that recall the controversial liberation theology movement, which dominated church politics in the region in the 1980s. Some of the political know-how comes from Jesuit priests who are veterans of social activism. Father Peter Marchetti has spent 20 years in Central America.
What Mitch did was pull back the veil that covered up years and years of social injustice. It's citizenship that has to be built, and we think the poor have to take the steps at the very beginning to act like citizens. And when the poor act like citizens, we think the international corporations, we think the very rich people who never get down this far will also begin acting like citizens.
Among the rich and powerful in Honduras is the American-educated president, Carlos Flores. Cognizant of the fact that he is under intense scrutiny by the international community, he has pledged a fair and open process in aid distribution. His American wife, Mary, has made numerous appearances across the country, trying to convince people that there will be no corruption. Questions remain. Will the private sector, historically allergic to projects whose goal is the empowerment of the poor, truly negotiate with this new civil society? Can the ultra-rich truly work with the poor instead of against them? If that happens, it will be for the first time. This eerily beautiful landscape underscores an elemental truth about water. It gives life, and it takes it away. In Honduras, it swept away lives and livelihoods, but it also bequeathed a sense of commitment to building a new society that, but for the tragedy, might never have been realized. Perhaps a new Honduras can arise as the waters recede. This is Ruben Martinez in Honduras.
And that's our report for now. Next time, what makes a religion a religion? The state of Texas versus ethical culture. I'm Bob Abernethy. See you next week. As we leave, a reprise of the inspirational hymn, "The Storm Came to Honduras." Reverend Carolyn Winfrey Gillette wrote new lyrics for the Good Friday hymn, "O Sacred Head Now Wounded." It's performed for us by the Gettysburg College Chapel Choir in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania.
And as you turn the faucet, you anticipate that first sip of cold water hitting the back of your throat, and you're almost certainly working on a very simple assumption that the water you're about to drink will not make you sick. Well, we traveled recently to a country where that assumption does not exist, where the water is so badly contaminated that it's killing thousands of children each year. And we chose as our guide a man who spent the last 8 years of his life teaching people how to change that. We take you now to Honduras, to the capital city of Tegucigalpa, to meet this man.
The concentration of population in urban areas, in Tegucigalpa, for example, near sources of water, like the Choluteca River, cause those rivers to be really overexploited. They're used for bathing, they're used for hauling water, they're used for doing laundry. There's a lot of human waste in those rivers. There's high concentrations of pollution and contamination in the cities. Unfortunately, that doesn't just stay there. That moves down toward the sea. In the case of the Choluteca River, it moves south. Downriver, 40, 50, 60 miles. You'll then have children, mothers, hauling water, bathing in the river, and really reaping not the benefits, but really the dangers, and sometimes the grave dangers of that polluted water that started in the city. You have children who are drinking water that is dirty, that is not good for them. They're very susceptible. 36% of the kids who are getting sick in the country are getting sick with diarrhea. And of those kids, there is a large percentage that actually that will die. ¿Cómo están? Saturday morning, you can taste the dust in your mouth. It's coming up off the land. There are about 35 men here working to open 2 miles of ditch, and they're laying the pipe for the water system that's going to provide clean water from this source up in the mountains to about 300 people, about 50 families in this area. All the systems that we build in Honduras are built by the Honduran people. They have sacrificed their own time of their families to be out on weekends like this, making sure that the engineering of these systems is correct, making sure that there aren't going to be any failures with this water. And we're happy to say there are about 500 communities in this country that have systems that don't fail, that are working today, and pure water going to thousands and thousands of people. The corollary to that is that when you have that, children develop as healthy children. Their capacity to learn, their capacity to grow is so much enhanced by this kind of simple intervention. So they're going to school and they're performing well. They're going to school and they're achieving. They're going to school and having a sense of self-esteem. You would say, well, what would that have to do with a glass of water? It has everything to do with a glass of water. We train cadres of village leaders who understand the system from start to finish, so that if there is a breakdown at some point, they don't need to go back to Tegucigalpa. They are trained in solving the problem themselves. This is where it all ends. 14,000 gallons of water in a secure, sealed tank that's clean. And this water comes from a source about 2 kilometers up into those hills, comes down through gravity, fills this tank. We have control valves on the other side of the tank, open those up, and it flows out into about 78 homes. This kind of simple intervention, a little bit of engineering, a lot of sweat equity, really works. And the result is clean water and healthy people. When you kind of stand here at the end of the journey, you see that it's possible. It's possible to collect the water, it's possible to deliver the water, and it's possible for people to satisfy that basic human need.
According to the most recent statistics, diarrhea kills 3,200 children under the age of 5 every single year in Honduras. But Doug Ryan and his organization, Catholic Relief Services, report that the number is now dropping. So there is hope.
For all those people down there. Up next, tonight's Geo Classic.
On this day in 1953, the world awoke from the nightmare of polio. Hear the story from Dr. Jonas Salk himself, next on National Geographic Today.
When Hurricane Mitch came crashing through the country of Honduras in late October of 1998, It devastated everything in its path. Houses, schools, trees, livestock, even people were swept away. But something else was destroyed by the storm as well. Human dignity and hope for the future were also lost when Hondurans were no longer able to be self-sufficient in the aftermath of the disaster.
What people need to imagine who weren't here is the toll that took on people. What it was like to be a person in the face of this river that was growing and in a matter of moments was spreading over its banks and was sweeping people away, and the horror that caused. As I've said before, it was really of apocalyptic dimensions.
Catholic Relief Services, which had already been operating for the past 40 years in Honduras, stepped in with immediate relief aid that eventually segued into food for work programs.
Mitch came along and shook us and said, we need to respond today, right now, to the human suffering that is really all around us.
Now, 6 months later, CRS has created a long-range plan to help reestablish normality in the lives of the Honduran people. With guidance from the relief agencies, homes, farms, and bridges will be rebuilt across the country. And with this revitalization, CRS believes the sense of hope and dignity that Hondurans lost in the hurricane will once again be restored. In April of 1999, Catholic Relief Services President Bishop John H. Ricard and Executive Director Kenneth Hackett joined a group from CRS headquarters in Baltimore that traveled to Honduras to observe the recovery progress.
We wanted to come down and personally express our concern, our appreciation to the people of Honduras, to the church in Honduras, and to the government in Honduras of that 40 years of collaboration.
After flying into the capital city, Tegucigalpa, the first destination was Oropoli, a town in southeastern Honduras that had been heavily damaged by Hurricane Mitch.
The people in the village were very friendly. As a matter of fact, it was an overwhelming welcome. They had signs, placards of welcome. They were very pleased to see us. It's obvious that this was an isolated village that hadn't seen many visitors from it for very much. And so we were treated in a very special way.
The entire community of Oropoli gathered in the village church to watch as their mayor made a special presentation to the CRS delegation. Bishop Ricard then spoke to the crowd.
You want to see you have a roof over your head, and a soft, warm bed at night. And a wonderful place to raise your children. Un lugar bonito para criar a sus hijos, so they can have enough food para que tengan la educación, and educación, and love.
These words had great significance to those listening because everyone in the village had been affected in some way by the horrors of Hurricane Mitch.
Many of them had been left homeless because of the great damage of Hurricane Mitch. And so they were very grateful for our presence and for the help that we provided.
One of the village's most serious needs after Hurricane Mitch was replacing dozens of destroyed homes.
In late October, the river San Jose, which is down below, overflowed its banks and destroyed 71 homes of 71 families. Immediately after Mitch, these families, through the mayor and through the church, met with CRS and requested that we provide some kind of assistance to get them back on their feet. The mayor came forward with all of this land here and said, I'll give you the land if we can figure out a way of getting the materials.
CRS gave me food, clothes. They helped us with oil, rice. For me, the only institution that has directly given us a real hand is CRS. They donated pipes to reinstall the water system in Oropoli and also helped us rebuild the sewer system.
Using the donated land, which is located high above the river, Catholic Relief Services devised a housing initiative that would build 71 new homes for the families of Oropoli. While CRS provided the raw materials and the know-how, the families that will one day live in the houses supplied the labor.
We do a bit of everything. Mix the cement, make the blocks,
Bill just generally the whole process?
Everything else is done by the families. There are 71 families working in 2 teams of 35 each who make the block down by the river and do the excavation and all the construction here. They take turns every other day, and by August, the hope is that this project will be done.
CRS did this deliberately because we don't want to simply come in and say we're helping you. We want to say we're helping you help yourself. We want to work with you, not for you, but with you. And we thought that this would not only provide housing for people, but provide a new skill and a sense of hope and ownership into what they were doing.
It was theirs. It wasn't something that the Americans or the North Americans did for them. It was theirs. And that's, I think, that element of hope that the church should always bring to people.
While at the construction site, Bishop Ricard gave a special blessing on the future homes.
Lord God, we ask you to bless this house. Señor Jesús, pedimos que bendiga esta casa. And bless those who will live herein. Y bendiga a los que aquí van a vivir. May they be sheltered from all that will harm them.
Later this year, when construction on all 71 houses is complete, each new residence will be given a number. Families will receive their home by picking one of those numbers out of a lottery. And by doing so, not only will they be receiving a new home, but a new lease on life.
We talk in the church about providing signs of hope to people. The immediate effect on this was one of great relief, really, that here was an opportunity to get back into their lives as they had known them before the storm had hit. So people here are obviously very, very pleased with this effort.
Tegucigalpa, the capital city of Honduras, was also very badly hit by Hurricane Mitch. Even today, buildings and bridges remain devastated as a result of flooding from the storm.
We're in the center of Tegucigalpa, and over here, what looks like a peaceful stream was a raging river, the Choluteca River, that reached 2-3 stories high, passed over the bridges that are behind us, destroyed the Ministry of Education, flooded out all the records of all the public school students in the country. And behind me, the water had risen up into the roof, up to the rooftops that we see over here, carrying away people, automobiles, possessions. The water, all of this ended up forming a dam at one point in the river, which then formed an artificial lake. And that lake had to be drained out because it became a focus of disease in the country. For weeks after the storm, this river stayed high, and when it began to subside, the government, the Red Cross, rescue workers began to pull bodies out of this river.
Though Catholic Relief Services has traditionally focused on rural areas, the need in cities like Tegucigalpa was so great that CRS began to direct its work in the urban areas as well.
We're supporting the construction of housing through Food for Work. We're not going to be building the housing. We're going to support with our Food for Work program people who are building housing here in the city. We're also doing some support with the Archbishop's office to get a cash flow started so we can start getting some homes up.
In addition, CRS also established a warehouse in Tegucigalpa to store supplies such as food, clothing, and tools. In some cases, relief supplies were bundled together to send to families like the citizens of Oropoli who lost entire homes in the hurricane.
They're part of the resettlement packages. Now, when the families move into their homes, they're going to get a bed or a couple beds. They're going to get these water buckets. They're going to get some kitchen utensils, the basics to get started again.
And now, 6 months later, despite the widespread damage across the country, people are beginning to slowly resume everyday life again.
There are also signs of hope. We see people working, restoring the bridge. We see commerce reactivated, people walking home for lunch. The streets are filled again. But we have a visual understanding of how big the task is of the reconstruction in the country, just being in this one small area of Tegucigalpa.
Full recovery from Hurricane Mitch in Honduras will only be possible with the cooperation of the government, its people, local churches, and relief agencies. Already, these groups have achieved incredible progress by working together. While visiting the country, the Catholic Relief Services delegation had an opportunity to meet with local media at a press conference held in Tegucigalpa.
And we also had the opportunity yesterday of meeting with your president, President Flores, and we expressed to him again our thanks for the privilege of serving here and for the cooperation which the government has given us over the past many years, and our continued solidarity and concern for the well-being of the country.
Catholic Relief Services Executive Director Kenneth Hackett also used the press conference as an opportunity to introduce CRS's long-term plan for helping Honduras recover from the ravages of Mitch.
At a minimum, over the next 3 years, we hope to either rehabilitate or construct anew almost 4,000 homes. We are equally concerned about the whole question of food security in the country. So in addition to the many food for work programs for almost 200,000 people throughout the country, we are also purchasing immediately $500,000 worth of seed. The third major area that we will attempt to support over the next 3 years is the reconstruction of some of the bridges and roads in the country.
Essential to the success of Catholic Relief Services' recovery plan is the work of its in-country staff. Living and working in the aftermath of destruction is extremely stressful, and CRS is sometimes the only lifeline for those in need, a responsibility Bishop Ricard recognized and addressed during a Mass held at CRS's Honduran headquarters.
I know that I express the sentiments of American bishops and of the American people. Yo sé que expreso los sentimientos de los obispos y del pueblo norteamericano. As I thank you for the sacrifices you continue to make. En mis palabras de agradecimiento a ustedes por los sacrificios. On behalf of your brothers and sisters who are here, en nombre de los hermanos y hermanas de ustedes mismos, and in responding to their needs, y a responder a las necesidades de ellos, especially those who are poor and most affected by this.
As Bishop Ricard and the CRS staff from the United States and Honduras gathered together, it was an opportunity to reflect on the significance of the work Catholic Relief Services is doing in countries around the world, like Honduras.
One of the most important things that I think Catholic Relief Service and the Church is fostering here is a sense of dignity among the people, and a sense that there's hope for a better tomorrow.
Some people may ask the question, why do we have to go and help people overseas, and why can't we help our own? Well, actually, we don't see, although we see poverty in America, and we see want, and we see people in need, the level of poverty, the level of hunger, the level of deprivation, the immense problems of unemployment, of structural inequities, just far exceed anything that we experience in the United States. And because we have been so blessed by God with the earth's resources, and God has blessed us with our own ingenuity, that we have an obligation to the rest of the world to share that we have.
At the close of the 20th century, man-made and natural disasters affected millions of people around the world. Hurricane Mitch ravaged Central America. A civil war disrupted life in Kosovo, and a genocide devastated the people of Rwanda. But the future can be different if what emerges from the chaos is a society that recognizes the human dignity of all people. Catholic Relief Services, with its partners around the world, is working today to ensure dignity and justice to everyone in the human family. Working in partnership with the people of Honduras, Rwanda, and Kosovo, we continue the search for peace, justice, and reconciliation. We are joined in a partnership of hope. On October 26, 1998, winds from Hurricane Mitch reached 180 miles per hour, becoming one of the Atlantic Basin's strongest hurricanes on record. The vicious storm stalled just off the coast of Honduras before moving inland to unleash its fury in Central America. In just 6 days, Hurricane Mitch poured over 50 inches of rain on already saturated land. In Honduras alone, Hurricane Mitch left more than 6,500 people dead, 11,000 missing, and 2 million displaced. Damage totaled more than $4 billion. After Hurricane Mitch, the town of Marañones in northern Honduras was devastated.
When we talk about civil society, we talk about getting people in sort of on the ground floor, very much at the grassroots, in a process of creating the kind of community that they want to live in.
Local groups in Honduras were organized into committees called CODELs. CODELs give the people a voice in building and controlling their future. They analyze local needs, formulate proposals, and monitor the distribution of resources.
In Marañones, we experienced a tragedy with Hurricane Mitch. How do I describe it? It destroyed the majority of everything, houses, animals, everything. We needed to look for another area to build houses.
They did find a piece of land on higher ground, but before they could relocate the town, they had to confront an uncooperative government bureaucracy.
We were living on the street and they wanted to give us only 5 acres of land for our town. We have 153 families that need a place to live. We need a school, a community center, a recreation area for the kids.
To help facilitate the process, Catholic Relief Services partnered with local groups in their communications with the government.
As supporters of human rights, we offer them judicial support to investigate whose land it was, and check to see if someone owned a title to it. And we found out that nobody had claim to that land. We then met with the CODEL, and we dealt with the municipality and all other agencies to get the title for the land.
This is one of the principal natural rights that people have, is to a safe home. Catholic Relief Service resources are going into communities all throughout Cologne to get housing up again. Decent housing, dignified housing, not housing that's sort of thrown together.
The people of Marañones finally got clearance to build a new town, thanks to concerted efforts to establish lines of communication between the country's unheard citizens and its decision makers.
The church is involving themselves politically. They are negotiating with nationals on the problem they need to resolve to make their lives better.
The problem here in our country is that politics, plays a big role. So we are trying to teach our politicians, that we have to be decent, that we have to work for the country and not for groups or parties.
Up to 1980, we had a dictatorship. And who taught anybody in local government how to govern after 1980? Most mayors just say, I'm the maximum authority. And they want you to hear that and believe it. All of the CRS support is towards building citizens. And citizens make local government work.
The people of Marañones went to the regional government in the city of Tocoa to be heard.
Nosotros Here in Zacoa, the villagers have presented themselves with firm decisions and maturity in finding answers to problems that they and the authorities are confronting together. We have made a codel together in a new way to administer and treat the problems that we confront. They are no longer a passive people that are waiting for the elections for us to visit them. They have become proactive people. We have to listen to their opinions on different subjects and projects that affect their lives.
Nestled deep in the mountains of Honduras, the town of La Cumbre sits near the San Pedro River, a beautiful river that poses a deadly threat to the people who live nearby.
In the wintertime, the rainy season, this river leaves us stranded. When we had the floods, we had to travel a long way around that mountain to be able to find food.
With the help of Catholic Relief Services and its partner, the Diocese of Trujillo, the villagers decided to build a bridge across the river. But the job proved to be a bigger challenge than anyone expected. Efforts to organize the community and teach villagers new construction skills slowed early progress. The local government made it difficult for villagers to obtain the permits needed to cut trees, the only source of wooden planks needed for construction.
This bridge is going to help us take our goods to market, because in the rainy season, we will have a way to cross. This is the bridge of life for our community.
In La Cumbre and across Honduras, communities that organize codels successfully empower their citizens. Catholic Relief Services and its partners may provide the resources and tools, but it is solidarity among the people of Honduras that helps them shape their own future and improve their quality of life.